Okay, so today we're going to talk about internal rate of return, and we're going to use the same sort of stuff that we've already done before. Let me just get a good color going here. And the difference between net present value and internal rate of return is that we're still going to discount all the future cash flows back down to time period zero. All of that's still going to happen, except that when we do that, the equation then looks like it actually is the same way, right? Cash flow 0 plus cash flow 1 over 1 plus r to the 1 plus all of the future cash flows to the last one over, that's an n, cash flow n, capital N for the last one, 1 plus r to the n. And then that gives us, at r equals some percentage, we can calculate NPV equals NPV. But there's a difference here, that when we look at what that R should look like, we don't necessarily know what it is. Like, what is R? How do I know, like from the last problem, that R should be 18%? I don't know. Other than my boss tells me that R should be 18%, the answer is we will know. We'll discuss this in future chapters. But at some point, I don't necessarily want to be able to calculate NPV at 18%. Maybe I calculate at 17 or 16 or da-da-da-da. It doesn't really matter. What I also want to be able to calculate in terms of IRR is that R, right? So here's my R in here, and here's my rate of return inside of the calculation. How do I get to that? Well, I'm basically saying right now it's 18%. But what happens if I don't know R? Okay, so let's erase all of this and say to ourselves, oh no, what is R? And that's what the IRR question asks, or tries to answer. What indeed is, let me get this, what indeed is R? So we're going to come back and recalculate this. And in order to do that, we have to do it at NPV equals 0. Why isn't this working? 0. Okay? So basically, the equation is that the internal rate of return is the same discounted cash flows, except it's when NPV equals to 0. And that's a critical difference, because we're no longer calculating for an NPV, we're calculating for the internal rate of return. And in order to calculate for this singular R, I have to put a solution on the other side of the equation, and that solution is 0. So let me change colors real quick. So let me get a little bright yellow going, and then we can continue. So in our example above, let me get the numbers in the right place here. There we go. So in our example above, this is going to look like cash flow negative 250 plus the future $35 discounted by 1 plus R. Remember, I don't know what the actual R is, but I'm going to figure that out. 1 plus 80 over 1 plus R squared, right? I'm discounting it by 2 periods, plus dot, 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 until I get to the last one, 175 over 1 plus R cubed. And again, I'm solving for this R right here, this R right here, this R right there. But in order to do that, I've got to come back and figure out that, where's my yellow? There's my yellow. Figure out that I have to have something on the other side of the equation, and that is going to be the number 0. So let's go ahead and discount this back. If I were to discount this back, I would discount this guy to here, and I would discount this guy to here, and it gets a little complicated. And I'm going to show you how to do this with another equation. But basically, on your computer, we're going to solve all of this, and I get some number. I equate it then to 0. Equate it to 0. Hello. Equate it to 0, and the resulting rate of return is what I'm going to calculate for. I don't have my other calculator right now, but basically on most calculators, you're going to go just like we did with our cash flows. Cash flow 0, cash flow 1, cash flow 2, and so on. and you're just going to type them in. 250, 35. Was it 35? Yeah. 35, 80, 80, 80. I don't know what's going on today. 80. And then, this is probably the easiest one you'll have. At the very end, you're going to shift. You can find the shift button somewhere and hit the IRR button. Okay. For this particular example, you should get an IRR. And in the book, this is found on page 257. You should get an IRR of 27.8. Again, I'll do a practice problem later that shows all of this together. But if I go back up to the original, whoops, let's see if I can find it. There it is. If I go back up to the original cash flows, when I discount all of these equaling to an NPV of 0, my R, or my IRR, my internal rate of return for these cash flows, should be 27.8.